All right, let's see if we can get this going. Hey everyone, that should be up and we should be running live from UK, England, V, from VAEXPERIENCE, just for anyone who might be new joining us. We have a very meaty subject this side of the new year to discuss. And I think last time when I was running my live stream, it was about layoffs. So I think we're going to kind of carry on the message because still that shadow or, those dysfunctions of the actual tech industry is going to follow us into this year as well. And hey, Rakit, maybe I'm mispronouncing your name, so sorry for that, but welcome aboard. Let me just wait for another few people to join in and then we can start like this meaty discussion. As you can see on my screen already, I have a few things prepared, by the way. And I think we're gonna build up as we go actually, and I'm gonna unpack, and I'm also gonna try not to hold off too much and be maybe a bit less political in a way, because a lot of the signals are gonna make our lives quite difficult, but we also need to be open-minded how we approach them, because we need to make the best with what we got, and UX is extremely important, and it's gonna become and kind of retain that status for quite some time. Doesn't matter what the doomers of UX think; it's irrelevant. It's the human centricity, because we serve humans, are gonna persist. It just might take different shapes or forms. And hey everyone, I think Robin, Cosmos Beta, RJ, welcome aboard. And I'm gonna start with that because I think we have quite a few people already here. So what I'm gonna discuss today is the meaty subject of the trends of 2024 and what it could look like. Again, a year is nothing. It's just a fart in the wind. It's literally, I think we're already around 2% done with the new year, if you can imagine that. I think maybe tomorrow or the day after is going to be literally 2% done of the year. And it's massive. It might not sound like that, but, there's not that many days, 365 days. And we're already on day 6 or 7, depends when you watch it or rewatching this. So the year is nothing, like on a grand scale of things, and if you zoom out, the trends are really not the trends, it's just the themes which you need to be aware of and then make your decisions accordingly. And what I'm gonna give you is really just those signals so that you can take it away and think for yourself. I'm gonna tell you my position and I'm going to tell you my market position, but ultimately it's going to come down to you to overlap those and make your own predictions or inform your actions in the day-to-day scenarios, right? So there's going to be a few, I think 6 or so things I want to discuss. It's going to be about layoffs being on a downtrend. It's going to be financial market unfolding and as well tech market unfolding. It's going to be that certain industries are going to recover faster than the others, and then demand for tech-centric roles, but not necessarily for human-centric roles, which is super challenging for us. It's going to be about time to start escaping the LLM-based experiences, which are super basic and quite honestly, it's the worst UX you could imagine. And I know with ChatGPT, everyone was like, oh, it only succeeded because UX was good. UX was shit. It wasn't good at all. It was the minimum anyone could have designed. It was just a chatbot, So the actual interaction of it, besides the hype or novelty of the actual technology, the UX is crap. And lastly, the signal is going to be the type of UX I anticipate, which is going to persist in the market, and the stuff which you are going to be, I guess, asked to do, or more roles are going to shape up, or, all those skills are kind of going to be surfaced in that regard. And I see one question, is the subscription model here to stay? I don't think so, but that's probably a meaty subject, RJ, which I can cover maybe in the next video or a different video. Do let me know in a comment, by the way, after this video is done. Do remind me, because it's a big one. I don't think the subscription model is here to stay, to quickly nip it in the butt, and that's because if you think about it, I think, and again, I'm pulling the data out of thin air here, but an average customer life cycle or life for any service is probably around like 2 years, let's say. In those 2 years, we might be spending, I don't know, 100, 200 bucks, depends how expensive a thing is. You know, the more niche, chances are the services tend to be more expensive. But let's say it's 200 bucks. You could just literally charge them 200 bucks and make up the same. Your monthly recurring revenue might be a bit lower or might be spottier, but you as a business would have the same impact ultimately. So you need to kind of see exactly what makes sense. You know, the PLG, the self-serve based products and services drive with the freemium, free trial, and then, you know, subscription as a service business model with a recurring revenue of like a small monetization here and there. But you could argue that it doesn't make sense anymore because there's also subscription fatigues and every other bit, you know, from human perspective, but also more so from actual market perspective, because there are more competition which are challenging you. So you might think about different angles. Anyways, it's a big subject. I don't want to dive into it because there is more to explore. Now, the first thing, which we have a lot of to cover, so I'm going to try to speed run, but as I do so, do let me know your thoughts in the comments. It doesn't have to be a question. It can be suggestion. It could be additive elements or information to what I say. Challenge me as well. Do feel free to just add those, drop it in the comments, because that's how we learn and make better you know, decisions ultimately. We learn together. But the first one is really that I mentioned it in a few videos, but 2024 is gonna be quite, if not pivotal, it's gonna be a bit of a transformational to the actual tech industry, and it's an obvious one too. If you take something like layoffs FYI data, the actual layoffs are on a downtrend, and it's not surprising as well. Because it's been, you know, like all the different big tech and the inspired companies who took that inspiration and just followed through and kind of just chopped down, let's say, the 10% or so employees across the tech industry. I'm now going to start realizing that they need that talent to support those different initiatives, or we're just going to be in better pastures or have more funding to actually explore the innovative bits or the new greenfield type of opportunities or projects. They're going to need to start rehiring. So without jumping ahead to the next point or next principle, I just kind of want to hint that this is likely to be, you know, flipped upside down from now on. And granted, if you still take the data from what's happening today, in Jan, let's say, this is probably a better view, just to give you a summary. Let me just zoom out so you can see it more clearly. But it kind of looks like this, where in January we still, again, this is estimates, right, or self-reported data. But in January we have around, let's say, 4,000 or so employees being laid off. One of them is InVision, by the way, which is rest in peace InVision. Everybody got on board and cried about it on the internet, how they loved the brand. I agree. The brand has a lot of familiarity and loyalty. It's a shame. The bigger shame, though, is that the 500 people part of the InVision also got sacked and laid off. So, you know, let's not be sad about InVision. Let's actually give a hard shoulder towards Miro, because they're the ones who didn't want to keep either the services or it didn't make sense for them to integrate it into Miro fully. But if they laid off 500 people, that's a big bad decision from Miro's side. So that's how we should probably frame it. Anyways, that's just my take, though. You can have your own opinion. What I wanted to say is that it's a dramatic drop still if you compare with, let's say, previous months in 2023. It's definitely going to persist. And that's more so that it's not that, you know, the times are getting better, which they are slowly getting there. It's because people just ran out of people to lay off, or, you know, they exhausted a lot of those options. And, you know, let's say big tech had ran so many different rounds of layoffs since like 2021, I think. Then 2022 came, 2023, there was a lot of waves of layoffs. We cannot afford to lay off any more employees. And if they do, they're gonna need to chop very significant part of their revenue making projects and initiatives and programs within those businesses. So I foresee it actually slowing down and a lot of the roles opening up, which you can already see on LinkedIn, that a lot of people are starting their new positions, and big tech is starting to rehire, which I want to cover in the next point. I'm just jumping ahead a bit. Now, the change in UX posting in the UX, of the UX job posting in the US is quite interesting. This is just Indeed data, basically. But I just wanted to kind of bring it quickly up so you can see the comparison between UX research and UX generally. As you can see, the research, like it's been on this, I guess, increased slope where the demand was just much higher because you needed that more strategic insight to help out. But then naturally dropped because, again, a lot of different decisions were made, a lot of different social economics or global economic factors happened, conflicts, wars, things of that nature, things you couldn't have predicted, a lot of crashes that then impacts everything and kind of, gives a bit of a knock-on effect on the openings. So all of it dropped across UX. And obviously it's, if you even see it, it's very, there obviously is some sort of ratio here, but it's very similar drop across the actual UX design and UX research. Therefore, I'm not even kind of coupling them or decoupling them in that insight. I don't think it really matters just yet. I just wanted to highlight that potentially once we start to rehire, and at the big mass scale, I think the waves are still going to persist just like that. And I'm going to tell you exactly why in a few minutes as we go. One of the things which is good to see is this stat, really. And this is today's screenshot, ultimately. Let me just reposition so you can see it clearly on your screen. But open tech jobs, this Jan 5th, there is 182K of openings ultimately. It is up by 11% from its lowest, which is a big stat. It also is, let me just see if I can guide you as I go through it. It also still is much lower from its peak because it dropped throughout those different months up until now. However, it's picking up. If you see very lowest here, we're still on upwards trend, just like expected. And I think it's going to pick up even more so as we go. But that's one of the things. The layoffs did happen, but we are going to experience this downtrend. And the actual hiring is, it was quite flat. It's going to just pick up and hopefully exponentially kind of increase as we go at that. That's one prediction. And I think it's quite informed to be relatively conclusive on that end. But do let me know your thoughts as well in the comments. Anyhow, next one is a big one, and it's why I believe that a lot of those things are actually sorting itself out. One is, the big one is financial market, because that's what, it doesn't matter how good is your product or how much value you deliver to your company. If the finances are not right and the stocks crash and you need to still, sustain the valuation of a business or provide value to the shareholders, which is usually the accountability a lot of the executives have to face, well, it's, the rest is going to be to follow. And that's why the layoffs can happen as a knock-on effect because of that. So because of that, we need to look not just about how well the company is doing, let's say from user experience perspective, because that matters even less. It's almost like a downstream from the actual decisions. We need to go upstream, and that would be the actual financial market fluctuations. So let's say a few bits which I pulled out, and really interesting one, I just spotted it in one of the newsletters. It was the things which is basically like, let's say in US, and this is a snapshot in US specifically, across the globe it's going to vary a lot, but the actual federal funds rate and the actual increase in the rates, I think they're estimating to go just like one more bump ultimately, and that should kind of persist. And it's very conservative take, but by the sounds of all the different insights you would kind of, if you Google online, you're going to notice that everything seems to be stabilizing. Again, I'm no financial expert or no markets expert. This is just purely a signal I picked up. And I see it being quite significant because it seems like the actual interest rates are gonna stabilize or start to drop. You're not just gonna keep increasing, because if you're keeping if the increase is persisting, then you're in danger. You know, you cannot kind of easily kind of plan for a future, because at any point it could increase even more. So something has to give, and chances are the companies or businesses have to give by cutting more costs and maybe, you know, increasing and laying off some employees, and then obviously not rehiring, because how would you rehire if you don't have any cash to do so? The next interesting theme is this general statistic, which is basically the actual unemployment rates, which are also going up. There is, I guess, steady increase in the jobs, and it's not just tech related, but across the board. Like globally, and again, this is just a snapshot to illustrate what happens in the US, because a lot of the world is going to follow. There's the actual unemployment rates are quite low. Again, depends on the country, region, you know, don't sue me on this. But the actual increase in general openings is climbing. Granted, they're not all in tech, and a small fraction of it is in tech. But a lot of the people who got burned by the tech layoffs are considering and changing their careers. I think there's going to be a natural transition between different people across the board, you know, throughout this year. It's already been happening last year. It already takes like a year for talented and skilled UXers or even product people, engineers, to find a good position or a good job, because there's just too much too much demand for openings and not enough openings to support that. But this figure, I think, is pretty good, because it kind of informs that the tech is going to follow. Again, tech industry is still, in my head, generally on a principle level, supportive of everything else around us. There is just so many industries and so many firms out there and so many types of work which is low tech savvy or quite in need of digital transformation. So if general work or, you know, less tech savvy industries require something done, or they want to kind of progress, that's where the tech kind of comes in and helps it out. Of course, it depends. If you take something like Silicon Valley or big tech, it's a totally different ballpark. But if you generalize and zoom out worldwide across all the different industries, I think one of the statistics which I wish I would have pulled it up in this one, maybe I will by end of it, was the industries you should invest as a global investor. And SaaS, the digital, the tech, were like the least growing industries in general. And everything else, like transport, supply chains, healthcare, myriad of a lot of different industries are on a climb. And I think once, you know, we stabilize, the tech is going to follow. And the big ones, big signal, I guess, as well to just check is a Wall Street holds firmer after its 3-week slide as big tech stocks rebound. This is a massive one, because if the stocks are rebounding, the actual companies have more cash flow. They actually are valuated better. They're doing much better. They have much more cash to play with. Ultimately, they can start rehiring, they can start planning for a future. Granted, because a lot of the firms are burnt, they're going to be very cautious and risk averse, but I'm going to cover that again in a few steps here. There's just so much to unpack, really. Let me see what we have on the comments. Can you compare the hiring and layoffs between UX design and the software engineer? I am front-end moving into UX, and I fear UX is more difficult than front-end to find jobs. And this is from Adriana. And I think you kind of should be cautious, I guess, making that transition. And I wouldn't recommend you to kind of cut it very sharply. It's good that you made the decision to do so, but I have kind of kept a few pointers and my thoughts for the end of this, but I'm going to bring it now. I think it's kind of timely. The future belongs, especially with all the different tech, picking up the speed, it belongs to people who are going to be quite savvy in a lot of different skill sets. That's not a surprise. And especially as times get worse and we're not yet climbing out of that pit of at times being difficult. The technical skills, the know-how, the appreciation, the ability to pull up your own models or kind of work with, let's say, ChatGPT models, create wrappers, things of that nature, which I presume Adriana would have those skills, or she could kind of learn that on the fly if she would need to, it's very beneficial, because you're gonna, generalist roles are still in a high demand, and they're gonna be. And again, I'm gonna cover it in a bit. I guess the comparison between the UX design and software engineers, I don't even want to make, but I think the general kind of transition and you building up on top of your existing skills and the tech know-how is going to be very beneficial for you, because you are going to be in that sweet spot where a lot of the designers might be coming from a graphical design, which is a very important thing. I'm going to call it out again. But the technical know-how is going to be even bigger. Again, I'm going to come back to that. And the tech market. So financial market, the tech is gonna follow basically, but the three big signals or the three big flags which you need to look out for, but I'm already seeing it, that's why I'm calling out here, is one, once the tech IPOs and acquisitions start to happen again, just look out for those keywords. If you don't search the things, it's fine. If you don't go crazy and research these things, it's fine. Nobody has time for that. But once you hear things like tech IPOs or, again, stock prices increasing of the tech firms, that's where you know that things are gonna start to look up, and they are looking up. We had, again, 18 months of no major tech IPOs. Now they're happening. Literally within last few weeks, within last couple of months, we had 3 different tech IPOs happen. And a lot of firms now, I'm privy to some information in startup scene, and I know of a lot of the firms who are looking at this quite positively, because there is a lot of interest. Because firms who did really well before are still doing pretty well. They have a bit more cash to invest. They might not have people to actually make those ideas happen, but they might have cash to actually acquire more startups or like reinvest or make the actual funds more fluid. So it benefits everyone ultimately. The second thing which you need to look out, and this is a screenshot I took today, by the way, is the staff UX engineer opening at Google. This is one of those signals where if big tech is rehiring, then this year is gonna be good. Because they were the ones who were chopping down across the board multiple times, again, losing a lot of the tech talent. If they are actually, odd message, sorry, I'm getting a message that you're gonna get an ad for some viewers, which is automated. Just in case you do, I'm proceeding anyways. But if this is happening, you know exactly that things are recovering, and all those different areas which might not had enough UX are now gonna need to have it. So hiring is gonna resume. And once big tech is hiring, a lot of other firms are gonna start hiring as well. And the third one, and perhaps the most important bit, it might surprise you, by the way, but is the actual recruiters being rehired. And this is very important. And I'm going to repeat again, the actual recruiters being rehired. Why? Because once the layoffs happens across the board, the first people who usually tend to go are the ones who are sourcing other people, because you don't need to hire. You don't have cash to hire. You don't have cash to invest into getting more people on board. And recruiters were bad. If they're being rehired, chances are the new programs, again, are spinning up. The new roles are opening up, and someone has to admin that and, lead that process. This is it. And within last few days, anecdotally so, but again, look out for these signals yourself. I saw at least a few recruiters getting back to their roles in different firms, some in big tech. Again, it's my limited network, survivorship bias, that's all I have open. I don't know what's happening anywhere else. Granted, it's in Western part of the world too, which might be doing a bit better too. But if recruiters are being rehired, there is a reason why. And the reason is to hire more of other folk. So these three signals, and especially the last one, are progressively more important for you to keep in mind. If you see this happening, you know that we're going to be good. And I see this happening, and that's why I'm calling it out for you. Cool. Let me take a sip break. Do let me know your thoughts, though. Otherwise I'm just going to spin and go with it. I see a comment from BritX Designs. This is interesting. Thank you for going live, VA, to share our industry trends. Yeah, no worries. And I think it's also, it's quite important to not just take this, again, as a gospel or something which is, this is it. It's just purely signals. I kind of prefaced in the beginning of this live stream that you need to make your own decisions of like what's going to happen and your own predictions. But I, with my messaging, hope that we're going to create the preferable future from that meta futures thinking perspective, because the things you think and quote unquote manifest and envision is actually the things you actually get. And it's not the woo-woo type of spiritual BS. It really works, because if you think about, I don't know, cyberpunk futures, or think about AI being bad or stuff like that, chances are you're going to end up in that future. And just because you're going to be paying attention to those things, you're going to focus on those things, and you're going to be involved in those things. But if you think about something like greener futures or more rehiring, you're going to look for those signals, and you're going to make yourself inevitably get into better situations, because you're going to be exposed to more signals about that. It's just natural way to do that. It's not woo-woo or anything else. Anyways, I digress a bit. The third part is that, following on from the last bit, by the way, the certain industries will have to recover sooner than the others. And let me just position it, because my screen is a bit different than what I'm sharing. So I just need to quickly adjust. Okay, this should be better. Now we should be in sync a bit more. I know that I'm not cutting anything off for you. Okay, let me just see what the comments are like. Don't have much thoughts, just happy to see you noticing some good trends. Spent 3 years in a college as an old 32-year-old. Damn, that makes me like a grandpa then. And been looking for work since summer 23. It is what it is. Yeah, that's what I mentioned before, Henrik, as well, that it took so much time for even the most experienced people to find new jobs, because there are just not that many openings. And then you go against competition, which could be anyone. They could also go in, like someone who's maybe, I don't know, a lead or director level or head of, could be looking for senior roles because we can't find anyone else and we need to put food on the table. They're going to be your competition, and likely they're going to get that job. You know, it's just something which is out of your control. But what is in your control is, again, look forward and onwards and make sure you do the best you can with what you have, so that you optimize for your own success instead of, trying to kind of look and say, hey, it doesn't work. Can you go into detail about how the generalist will play an important role in 2024 UX? I will. This is actually one of the last bits, but we're almost halfway through. So bear with me, Ether World. I am relatively new to UX, 1.5 years. Can you talk about future proving my career? What skills should I focus on growing? Dave Vinyl, I think that's how if I pronounce. You should check my previous live stream. I cover exactly that. It's a lot to unpack, so it would be good if you can rewatch. It's one of my live streams on the channel. You can check it. It's going to be easier for you. Cool. Let me jump into it, and then I'm gonna come back to the comments as well. But certain industries are gonna recover sooner than the others. What I mean by that, again, it's just the inevitable, I guess, knock-on effect or chain of events of what happened before. Again, those firms who just decided to slice 10% across the board, sliced off a lot of, because it was so fast, and layoffs happen like blitz, instant, basically. The planning there just goes, it's the least of a kind of like a prioritized bit, or to plan like layoffs. It just happens basically, and happens really quickly, where your manager might not be aware that the layoffs are happening, and then everyone gets sliced off. Now, this creates obviously debt, and a lot of debt. And that's why the industries and my law, and again, I'm not claiming this as a big thing, but jokingly, the law of layoffs and rehiring is that the industries and parties that had laid off most employees will be the first ones to rehire upon market upturn. And what that means really is, let's say if we take this data set of 10 or so different industries, like the retail was shaken the most, I guess, and it still is. It's kind of like persistent, apart from maybe hardware, because hardware is gold, I think. If you can see, I mean, it's got shaken up after 2022 a lot, if you take this as a signal. But given the demand, if you're in the right industry in hardware, you're probably going to be, ticking up, especially if the company is going to invest more on AI or hot crap stuff, which is, all of the demand and all the hype right now. Now, to follow my thesis that the actual industries which chopped down brutally and laid off a lot of people going to be rehiring is exactly that. The retail as well. That's where the cash is mostly being generated. They're going to soon realize that they don't have enough people to support new initiatives, or they don't have enough people to even maintain the initiatives they had before, because they're going to be running on that, again, generalist and multidisciplinary level maintenance mode, where let's say maybe, let's fictitiously take 10 designers and 9 of them got chopped off, 1 was remaining. What could that one designer do in the firm? Do bare minimum. They might look at design systems, be a design team of 1, support maybe 1 or 2 big initiatives, maybe take a program level challenge if they're senior enough, maybe plan to rehire, stuff like that. But it's kind of like a zombie mode. It's a complete vegetative state where, they basically are supporting something minimal. And a lot of the firms are in that state. Some are maybe not, maybe doing better, but they are in that kind of like a limbo. And because they chopped brutally in those areas, I predict, and again, it's a prediction, they're going to be the ones to quickly rehire. So if you want to, I guess, get into UX, now is the time to look out for those industries or those opportunities like retail, consumer, hardware, food, healthcare, finance, transportation, sales, education, media, stuff which is also quite low on the actual tech involvement or on a lower scale. If you have any case studies in any of those industries, or you were maybe affected in those industries, chances are when the upturn happens and as we start to climb up the rehiring, these are the industries which might, or I'm not going to say might, they will need to rehire. It's just a given, and they are going to be the most hungry. There's going to be obviously shift between, let's say, AI specifically technology, but I also don't want to decouple it, because quite frankly, and I don't know if this is my next point. Oh, yes, it is. So my next point is that AI is hot shit right now, and it's like catnip for product managers and business leaders. That's just across the board. And let me just answer one question. Will AI replace UX designers? Yes, but probably not in the next decade, or, as much as you, I guess, think. AI is going to enhance how we do stuff and is going to replace some of the tasks we do. It's going to support us, but it's not going to just take your job away. Unless you're going to take a break, take a sabbatical for the next decade, and you're going to go in a cabin somewhere deep in the woods with no internet access, and you're not going to do UX, or let's say you stop doing UX, you transition to something else, and you forget about tech entirely, and you don't care about it. If you would to rejoin after a decade, yeah, your job is taken. You're not going to be good enough for the industry. But if you are in the industry already, or you're planning to get into it and you're learning and you're part and you know exactly what AI is or how you can design for it, then you're slowly gonna transition and roll with those punches. You're gonna fumble down and become ready for it. So don't fear, especially if you're already in tech, because you're gonna brush shoulders with the skills required to design with AI. It's as simple as that. Just to nip it in the butt really quickly. Damn, I'm getting more and more questions. Any advice for overseas senior UX candidates looking for opportunities in the UK? This is a big one. It really depends. It depends if you need visa. If you need visa, then you might want to join a firm which allows mobility and has an office in UK, and maybe you're gonna, but it's such a wide bet. You really need to be really, really good to be internationally viable or a desirable candidate. That's what I learned myself. And again, as a European, I'm privileged. I don't know why the fireworks came up. I think it's the gestures from iOS. So sorry, that wasn't intended. But as a European, I'm super privileged, and I'm aware of that I just moved from different countries to UK, and I didn't have visa restrictions until the Brexit and things of that nature. So I was very fortunate. But I can appreciate and understand that you need to become almost like the top 1% of UXers and have a substantial experience, very strong network, because that's where it's going to be the most. Like, the network is probably going to be the best for you to shortcut your career. But then you can kind of work with that. Again, right now, I wouldn't even hope for it unless you already have some sort of plan of action and you know what you're going to do, and you have like a breadcrumb set up so that you can mobilize and move somewhere and have that support of H-1B visa from US or UK's equivalent of that, where you're, I think it's called highly skilled workers visa, basically. Again, I'm not an expert in those specific areas, but network, extremely valuable, and highly skilled skills. Like, you need to be basically one of the best people in the tech industry. It's not hard to get there, but it's going to take you years if you don't have the substantial knowledge or network right now. Just need to be realistic as well. Cool. Let me crack on, because we might also spend a lot of time on supportive bits and bobs. But do leave comments in the chat. I'm gonna look into it. Might miss some, so bear with me. Maybe follow up afterwards. Now, the fourth signal is that demand for tech-centric roles and less human-centric solutions is gonna be one of the biggest themes, I think, and one of the most important parts. That's why I kind of placed it in the middle. The layoffs, the rehiring, the market uptick is going to happen, and we should be like, yay, this is, exactly what we're waiting for. We can work with that. Now, this is kind of, throwing a spanner in the works for us, and massively so. AI is a catnip for every executive and business leader and techie, and it shows. This is a screenshot, again, just like I did with the Google one. I took a screenshot of really quickly. I looked product manager openings. I didn't even look for UX openings because they're small. They're still recovering. Product managers, hiring for product managers was happening throughout the layoffs, and it was always high. Right now, it is high with AI-specific product management, and it's really important. Why I'm sharing it with you, because you might be product manager, but you're likely UX researcher or designer. It's super relevant to you because you're gonna, again, it's your partner which is being hired. A lot of the firms are hiring for that type of skill. It's gonna impact you directly. So that's why I'm pulling it up. But you're gonna see that there's senior AI product manager. Again, it doesn't matter where. This is London specific or remote. Again, it's illustrative of a point. If you look somewhere else, I'm sure in US tech market, it's even more so, because US tech market is usually more booming. In others, it might be less, but AI is the hot shit. It's all the things which people are carrying right now. What does that actually mean? AI product manager. It's just another way to describe a technical product manager who's maybe has experience with AI. That's about it. But that then has a lot of the impact on what we do day to day, because product managers are, some of them, and are spectacular value add machines, basically, or they're the magicians who actually make a lot of the different things happen and orchestrate, and usually make lives of the UXers much easier as long as we know what we're doing. But given the demand for technical product management, my hopes are quite low, and it's likely going to end up with this kind of Wild West cowboying around, with a lot of people jumping in it, maybe having some AI experience or technical experience or engineering experience, but not so much of a UX experience. And they're going to join the workforce and start shooting guns left and right and, running around doing crazy stuff, which doesn't make sense for the user or human experience or product experience for the actual users. And so it's definitely going to be taxing on UXers. It doesn't matter how these can, because let's face it, a lot of the UXers are not that good. There's going to be some great ones. There's going to be majority which is good enough, and then there's going to be some bad ones. Same for product management. So your partner in crime has to be very much so in tune or tuned in into what needs to be done. And if you're super technical, my hopes are very low. Now, let me explain exactly why. So again, engineering and tech led over human-centered experience-centric solutions, which basically means that if you're super technical, chances are we might not have enough experience to be customer experience savvy, or they know how to do user research, they don't know how to, again, employ empathy, they don't know how to run the studies, they might not be equipped to shape products which actual people use. And we see a lot of that already, AI wrappers and chatbots, ChatGPT versions of it, it's garbage. Like, we might generate some substantial revenue here and there because it's novel and it's new and it's exciting, it's hype. But most of those tools, and I think once all that hype kind of, died down, you realize that they are not that good because they don't really answer any human needs. They just kind of like, it's a cool toy you're going to work with or play with, but you're not really going to use it day to day because it's just, yeah, it's cool, but that's about it. So that's ultimately the bottom line, that if you don't have someone who's advocating for it, and now you're going to have a lesser partner in that, it's going to be very dangerous. So it's going to create a lot of a debt in the user centricity, and it's going to further increase. So if your product was already in shambles, or the user experience was kind of like secondary to all the things, now it's probably going to be quiet, even more so. And again, it depends on the market, depends on the subject, depends on the product, it depends on a lot of different things. But if there's no shared appreciation, you are going to be taxed even more so to fight, to change minds, to coach, to partner up with a product manager who might be technical, and then try to build that appreciation, ways of working for the better. And that is really what brings me to this, which is basically, again, UX is going to be challenged and need to fight for the seat at the table too, because if everyone's so drunk with the drive to, use LLMs left and right, let's say, if you take like a very general statement across the board, then you're going to be the one probably, someone who has a bit more sanity to be like, why are we doing this? Or is this the right thing to do? And it's going to be even more challenging. But that uncovers massive opportunity. And it bears repeating almost, but it does uncover massive opportunity because you need to flip it upside down. Like this type of trend in the market where you see more technically savvy people coming in to support you or challenge you or make your life better or worse, who knows, is something we've seen, I think, with crypto as well, is something we've seen with general web practices here and there, where it's like if there's some sort of big emerging tech trend, you're going to see an influx of people who are basically experts or maybe lesser experts, and again, product managers might take on that hat, and then it's kind of like battling and saying, okay, is this right thing to do or not? That though opens this, again, demand for AI PM, aka technical PM, I'm just going to call him technical PM because that's what has been happening so far. That would be then lowering customer-centric PM pool by nature, because a lot of the people who might have been involved in the customer-centric PM pool or are up and coming in PMs who are customer-centric now are going to think, maybe I should just go immediately and do APIs and be super technical from the get-go and kind of forget about UX. So I see this probably in the next year or so, it's going to be generally lowering on the UX skills or how UX is done, because again, a lot of the UX has been done by PMs to date. You have to agree with that. So a lot of your skills and actions were taken by them. And the last one is really that the demand for, as a knock-on effect, the demand of UX skills once the business's failures start to show, because it's inevitable once you just put all the eggs in a technical basket and you forget about human centricity or making products people actually need and want to use, then you end up with a lot of dead experiments, and failures are going to kind of make people learn. And it's almost like that vicious cycle where as UXers, I think especially if you're a UX leader, you're kind of used to like, oh, God damn it, we're just way too far gone. And we just need to almost like let it fail so that the business leaders can learn and we can do better decisions next time. And that's, I think, what's going to happen in a way. Again, some areas might not see any of this. Some might see all of this. It's going to vary. But general theme could inform a trend of sorts. And I think that's where the UXers then can get more opportunities, especially if you are aspiring UX leader, and I think in senior roles, you're in a very good position to kind of make the change. If you are in junior roles, you're going to be definitely challenged. And the things you do might be restricted to very iterative experiments, mock-up churning, and all the other garbage, basically, which is uninformed design. Could be data-driven because it's tech, but it's not really data-informed, which means that you actually overlap also user experience signals, not just business or analytical signals or tech-specific, solutioning. But yeah, look at this as a big opportunity. That's the most important bit, because everyone else is, this kitty looking for catnip in AI. Like, you should have that kind of step back and try to look at this as this is the variables I'm likely to deal with in the next year or two. Again, the year is very small time frame. This is what I prefaced in the beginning of this live stream. If you joined late, I want to reposition this again. 1 year is nothing. It's literally nothing. Like, we're already 2% or so of the year done in the next day or so. Depends when you watch it. But 1 year is nothing. So these trends are likely going to impact what's going to happen in also 2025, or at least persist to some extent going forward. Let me check the chat and have a sip break. Do the same, by the way. If you need to take a tea break, do so. How do you feel when you get the resume that you feel that the user used AI to help with the copy? Do you mean the resume copy itself, that is auto-generated? It's quite hard to detect, but usually if you used AI to generate your copy for a resume, it's going to show, because it's going to be very vague, keyword-rich, jargon-rich. It's not going to have impact. It's going to have not going to have outcomes. You should use. It's going to show. So it's going to be like any other fluffed resume. It's not going to perform, basically. And on that note, by the way, shameless plug, but I'm working on a course for UX resumes specifically, which is going to be a deep dive intensive course, a video course at that. I might leave a link down below, or follow me on Twitter, maybe the best, where you can actually, opt in once I launch it, but it's in the making. It's going to cover a lot of these, but basically going to download or give you some knowledge of something which is going to stay with you forever. So it doesn't matter what skill set you're going to have the skills to create a resume which is impactful. And I almost can't guarantee it as long as you follow my advice, because that's, it's almost like a timeless resume course. But yeah, on that, we can talk later. But yeah, if you generate something with AI, make sure it's for more basic use cases like grammar or structure or flow of the actual sentences. But nothing beats the actual human writing, because that's where the gold is. Cool. I see a lot of different comments, and from Kevin Richard, not sure tech people will be able to recognize that the problem cannot be solved by throwing more AI or tech at the problem, and rather invest in proper design. I do agree, and it's exactly what my note here was, basically, that it's almost that inevitability of failure, and some businesses are also okay with that, where they might double invest into different experiments, let's say in tech, in AI, and they know that some of it is not going to survive, and they're okay with that because we might have that cash or investment. So it's going to be a mixture of that. Like, the only thing what I would advise to look out for, especially if you take on new roles or you have projects and you can highlight the risk, is to look out for those clearly drunk experiments or initiatives which are driven by FOMO more than the actual value to the users. If it doesn't have substantial basis or value add or framing or packaging to it, on the highest of levels, it's almost like you need to look out and be very wary of that, and maybe even have honest conversations with the leadership that you are putting like a failing bet on it, or your stance is that it's definitely going to fail. But if you want to proceed and you're okay with it, then let's proceed. But you'd have to have that conversation as well to push and pull a bit. And then follow up from Adriana. And if it shows, is it bad? I think that's to do with the resume. It is bad. Don't make it show. If you use AI, make sure it's human, because again, resume is going to be. I'm already taking a few notes from my upcoming course, but in design or UX, because we're not hiring millions or hundreds of thousands of people. It's not yet another manager role, a general manager role. Your resume is always going to be read by the human. It might go through ATS and keywords might be clicked in, but someone, a recruiter or a hiring manager, is still going to read it. I worked with startups at the earliest of stages, mid-sized, massive corporates. The resumes are always read by the people, even if they go through systems. I cannot overemphasize this. It's super important for you to know that someone is actually going to read it. So make sure you write it yourself. Anyhow, let me proceed, because we are going to go into the weeds. But do leave a lot of comments. Definitely helps me as well. Cool. So next one, after the actual AI catnip and technical roles, it's time for, I think, again, it's, I guess it's not granted this year is going to be the year of reckoning, but it's definitely time to shift from a simple chatbots, and again, that crappy UX, or some people thought it's amazing UX. I still challenge it. ChatGPT is the worst product I ever used for such a big hype generating entity. It's just a chatbot with amazing technology behind it. That's a given. The UX of it, would it actually stand among other chatbots if it wouldn't be the first one to do it? That kind of like, that complexity wouldn't be surfaced in that way. I think it wouldn't survive, because any other LLM model now gets some attention, but it doesn't get that much attention. So novelty works there, but UX is lacking. What I think is going to happen, again, we are going to go through, and this is, AI Gartner's life cycle, right? Like, where you have a lot of hype and we're running through it. There's generative AI and everything else included in this. And we are probably somewhere, I think, again, depends how we look at it, but if we zoom out, we're somewhere here. We're not yet at the slope of enlightenment, and ignore some of these signals like computer vision, let's say, being a big one. It's already a big one. Generative AI flow curve is gonna look, similarly. It's just that the keywords might be different. I think we're not yet entering this, which is the most important part, which is slope of enlightenment. That's where teams obsessed with AI are going to reflect and say we need to think about user experience. There is some thinking here and there, but it's very anecdotal and very small. It's not a trend just yet. So I think in the next year, we're going to start going into this section where there's going to be just way too many shitty tools powered by AI, and the user's not going to kind of resonate, or they're just going to adopt it and then drop it, and the revenue is going to falter, and then the actual businesses are going to struggle to kind of keep up and create use cases and justify it and answer the needs and shape the actual proof of value for someone to buy things. I want to kind of, again, on a futures thinking perspective, to highlight this, that with the current AI obsession and the way we're solving this, we are basically, instead of kind of keeping up with this laser-focused probable future, we are basically not even getting into preferable future, which is exactly what we can do with the good design thinking and UX thinking and UX doing. We're probably just gonna be lost somewhere here until a lot of that bad signals or a lot of that pushback or the knock-on effects are gonna come back. So again, my message, I guess, of these signals is, well, to think about it, how to create the preferable future. And that's to look out for better pastures, to be challenging the businesses of the right things to do instead of just jumping, the gun or just doing it because it has to be done, or you need to apply AI somewhere. Like, you don't need to apply AI anywhere. AI is amazing technology, but it has to be right. And you need to basically advocate for it, and you need to challenge the business or that technical PM who might be joining new and might be all excited, Wild West type of cowboy. You need to basically reflect and say, hold on, chill out. Is this the right thing to do? Does that produce enough value? Is this the right bet to take? And that would create us the preferable future. And I just want to surface as well, which is, by the way, my pet peeve, I guess, with last year has been as well, that a lot of the UX courses for AI have been focusing on how to design better chatbots or just introducing what LLMs are. They're not thinking about why the AI is so powerful, or what would ideal experience powered by AI would look like. And I see, I think I'm gonna also work on a course for AI-powered user experiences. Do let me know if you want it, though, because I want that demand too. But I feel like a lot of the people who didn't really work with AI before, they just kind of think, oh, it's just another chatbot. Oh, let me know how to design yet another experience where it's conversational. It's just, I'm getting tired and almost fatigued of those signals or those courses because they're super basic. They're not considering of what type of AI it is and what value it delivers. Like, when I have a chat with some of the people and I say, is it assistive? Is it autonomous? Is it something which kind of just automates your data presentation layer? And it's likely is that, then it's not even AI-powered experience. That's just AI technology, which is at the POC level. There is no value in it. Now, with the next year, and if we get to that reckoning and that pivotal moment, a lot of the AI has to be going from this mid-assistive point to the decision support. And the decision support is super important here because none of those tools, like even ChatGPT, you couldn't call it decision support because you need to ask the actual chatbot to give you some information. It's sort of meta. If on a philosophy level, you could argue it's a decision support tool because it supports your decision somewhat, but you need to chase for it. It's not one of the tools which is going to give you suggestions of what to do in a very critical situations or live with you as a, let's say, a digital twin of sorts. It's not going to be basically giving you signals of what you should be doing in day-to-day situations, let's say using some tool or if you serve some sort of customer in their environment, like development environment. So this is what's lacking. It's not understanding that there are so many different layers to AI-powered user experiences, that it's not just about bloody chatbots and LLMs with a UI wrapper. That's what boils my blood, because all of those UX for AI, again, courses, posts, stuff like that, is garbage. Like, you need to think bigger. You need to zoom out, and you need to think about like what the experience is actually on a vision level going to look like, and then walk backwards. And your on a vision level experience is going to be full on bloody automation where everything is done by AI. And that's your goal. Now work backwards to see exactly how you can get to a decision support. But it's not ending at the data presentation where LLM is spitting you out some results. It's amazing, but it's not the experience. It's like a minimal damn experience, and there is not much difference between data presentation on a database and data presentation with assistive AI. If ChatGPT gives me a developer documentation, tells me how to do this widget, or teaches me HTML, I can find that information also looking deeper. Granted, this experience might be easier and quicker and faster, but it's still the same output as I could find on the actual documentation. The experience, of course, you could argue is better here than there, might be vice versa, because ChatGPT could be inaccurate too, so there's downsides to it, but it's still the same level of things. It's still data presentation. It's just that the actual output comes from, instead of a static database, from a vector database. And that's it. It's not assistive. It doesn't actually support your decisions, things of that nature. So the trend here is to look out for that and be very cognizant of that. And again, if you want me to make that course or a toolkit of sorts for how to design those experiences, how to basically design what, like when I started doing this back in the day with machine learning based, with these talented data scientists together, we would just get together and we worked on it. We used a lot of cognitive mapping, mental model mapping, decision support research specifically, which was tied to how to design the bloody AI experiences as they should be. Before the LLMs became this massive, big thing. Again, Transformer was there already. But I'm super passionate about this thing, and I think it needs to be done right. Otherwise, we're going to have hundreds of chatbots of bloody useless tools everywhere, which might add incremental value, but it's not going to be viable for the business because nobody wants to buy it. The running costs are super crazy because it's all over a place and it's not focused to add value, and then nobody wants it, or nobody actually needs it to use it every day or consistently. So this is what my thesis is. I'm sorry to go on a rant a bit, but think about how to get to the decision support and take a screenshot here, or actually a better way, because I went into depth on this in one of my previous live streams, check on my channel, which was to do with UX automation and AI. And it almost was like a preface. If I would just expand on that video, you would have a course on how to design AI-powered experience. If you want this, do chase me up, because I think it needs to be done, and I might do it. But yeah, we do need to get and cross that chasm. Let me know. Let me see what the actual comments are saying. What makes a good candidate that belongs to that top 1% desirable UXers? This depends who you, again, it depends. But if I would just tell you from my experience when hiring designers who stood out the most, were people who had relevant case studies. That's the biggest one. Because if you are on the market and you need a senior UXer or junior UXer, and they worked in the same industry, like retail, let's say, or in healthcare, and they have a case study or project done in that, they're immediately bumped up. They're immediately part of the top percentile of applicants. Granted, if they have the skills and it's all good, they have UX fundamentals and stuff. And they did the research, they designed it well, they tested, learned, iteratively progressed, answered user needs, stuff like that. But that's what pushes. That's one variable. Another variable would be, again, I guess, how much of the actual years we have under the belt or skill sets, because to master UX, you need a lot of time. You need to do a lot of homework. You need to do a lot of projects on the side. You need to do a lot of the things. And it kind of ties in maybe in the first point, but the more richer your experience and richer your portfolio is, the more relevant or the more top percentile designer you are, because then you're going to develop a third thing, which is going to be your rich palette of the skills. Because if you have solid foundations in user research skills, solid foundations of product design skills, you become almost irreplaceable. And then if you add communication, business acumen, consulting, stakeholder management, if you have agency experience, if you ate crap and you're honest about it and it shows, let's say I don't know if it shows in my communication, but I've eaten so much shit in my development as a UX designer and throughout the years with so many difficult stakeholders, with some where today just wouldn't flow, like it would be the biggest scandal because they are just so misbehaving and abusive, let's say. Like if you eat crap on the best of levels, again, don't go with it, you know, like today I would advise you, don't go with it. You need to kind of choose your battles. But designers who basically go through a lot of tribulations and trials and they go through a lot of different challenges, again, it could be AI. Like I was working with machine learning challenges and AI, not LLM specifically, in 2016 or 2017. So like that kind of falls through and like enabled me to get so many roles in between, basically, because it was so enriching of the experience. You need to look for similar pastures too. You shouldn't kind of steer away from the challenges as well. Again, you need to pick your battles, what matters to you. I knew that, you know, I want to hone my leadership skill. That also comes in hand. So the next role you pick should be focused of you progressing to that top 1% designer, whoever you want to be, basically. But it always depends. If you ask a different person who's hiring UI craftsmen, they're going to tell you they just need to be like amazing UI craftsmen, and that's about it. Cool. Let me see if I can answer another question, and then we can move on to the last principle. I'm working on a resource catalog for designing for AI. Is there something you are looking for, you are particularly interested about AI? No, but I'm also not looking for resources which are just summarizing of what AI tools are today. That's a wrong approach. This is like, it's a bad hangover from what we have so far. It's like those early web tools and bad UX tools. This is what we have with AI tools right now. There is almost no reason to collect them or create a catalog of it, because we're not done right yet. They're not human-centered. They're not user-centered. They're not approached from, okay, we have this user need, and now we're going to look what AI could add to that user need. It's always, we have this amazing technology, now let's give it to the user and see where it adds value to the user. There is no user needs. So if you're creating a catalog, I would kind of challenge you and say, is it user needs driven? You know, it's not just another marketing copywriting tool or another video editing tool or another image generation tool or another chatbot or stuff like that, conversational AI. If it's beyond that and it actually has legs for some sort of positive future, amazing. Otherwise, it's like, yeah, there's plenty of garbage around. Like there's so many AI tools which have no legs and add minimal value. I'm interested in knowing how those models and algorithms work, but I don't have a programming background and sure where to start. You don't have to. That's also another thing, because you're going to partner up with people who will. You need to know the methods to work with those people. Like if I were to create that course I'm talking about, I would tell you to learn cognitive mapping, which is basically how human beings make decisions and how they weight those decisions on what factors. So every decision, let's say I'm talking to you, I could tell you 1 million different things, but I'm choosing to tell you this right now because it's the heaviest factor with this core. That's how you could then design AI on top of it, because you know exactly what that person positively would tell you in that scenario. That's how you impact, you add weights, you train the actual models. If we were to design VA bot, which would talk about it, which nobody would need anyways, but you get my point. Mental model mapping, decision support research, things of that nature, all those different things. This is what you need to learn. Granted, the fundamentals of AI and knowing what the actual technology is important, like extremely important. But it doesn't mean you have to learn to program. It would be even perfect world if you would learn programming and know how to spin up your model or locally run something like, I don't know, one of the models, let's say LLM models. So you experience what it's like, but you don't have to. After the fundamentals, if you know how to do UX for AI, that's all you need. So do let me know if you want that, course or learning or a book. I don't know. It just takes so much time to do this thing. So, also be patient. Now, the last point and last big cherry on a cake. This is basically going to summarize of what more so your work could look like in UX. Again, there is a lot of variables, which again, if you can build it up, if you joined this live stream too late, make sure to rewatch it because it's super important. I'm trying to build up the actual picture so you know what that means. Because if you're just gonna take one of the snapshots of like principle number 6 or theme number 6, you're gonna lose a lot of that insight of why. But type of the UX work in 2024. Simply put, now generalists are still favored over specialists. So when the times get tough, a lot of the specialists, again, the specialism as a general theme is over optimization or optimization where if the time gets bad, it's not going to be there anymore. So that's what gets chopped the first, basically. If you have too many, I don't know, like if you take UX copywriters or motion designers or something like super specific. I know some companies are going to say, yeah, we cannot live without them and it's not super specific. We must have them. I agree, like you should always have them, but those roles are still a few. Those roles are usually the ones which might chop down to the minimum, and then the generalists might follow, but you still end up with a pool of the generalist skill sets who can do more, who can kind of, again, maintain those different initiatives and projects because there is no one else to do so. In the next year, it's going to persist. The risk-averse behaviors, even if we get to a good state, and we will, in rehiring, the generalists are going to be rehired first because everybody's going to be slowly moving ahead. They're not going to go and say, we need to now, form new teams for research. We need to do this or that. That's going to take months or years to recover. But the first roles are going to be still generalists. UX generalists are going to persist. Granted, some people might be here and there, like that role for Google staff designer. I can guarantee some of that role expectations are to do research too. And it might be also to do something else. And, it's still going to be quite generalist. And if you do have those generalist skills, it's going to put you at a better light, granted, if everything else is matching. The next one is that the core to design skills such as visual design holds foundations of previously flourishing UX orgs. And that's kind of a given because most of the companies still think of UX as a visual thing because that's what we show. When we talk about user experience, we need to show prototypes, we need to show mockups. That's going to persist as well, I think. The growth in AI tech-centric roles will be inevitable and, it's going to, again, lead to growth and adoption and stuff like that. If companies just going to use UX to design flashy mockups and churn it, then in that case, we're going to definitely increase the rate of failures because we're not going to get everything right if we don't know enough and there's massive uncertainty and risk. But the failures then going to drive and reinvigorate demand for more holistic UX, which kind of is a theme from this, I think, if you didn't miss this part, where demand for AI PMs, technical PMs, is going to lower the pool for UX or UX skill set, and that's going to generate failures, and that then kind of like going to create a vicious cycle to repeat, but it's hopefully going to reinvigorate the need for actual UX. But If you're a generalist and you have good enough visual design skills on a general theme, you should be good. So that's the things to focus on. I wouldn't recommend you to over-optimize on visual design. This is something I discussed in one of the podcasts previously with Hang, and Hang was specifically telling that visual design is a big one. When that was in the US market. It's roughly the same in UK as well, where let's say if you are a UX designer, you should be able to make things good enough or presentable enough. That's going to persist. It's not going to go away. Like, you know, design is design. We have to be. So if your skills were purely wireframing, user research, architecture of information, and things of that nature, do invest a bit of time to make things presentable in your portfolio, in your work. Again, it might take you more time, but we need to basically then fight that battle that because we need to take more time in our projects, we need to hire more people. And that should kind of enforce more thinking about rehiring and building expectations for growth. Let me quickly check the questions. Wow, thank you. That's very eye-opening perspective. That's awesome to hear. I hope this is actually useful. About the UX names definition for a professional, we have generalist UX design, interaction design. What else can we use? I would like to use user-centered designer. Is that a thing? I wouldn't overthink it, by the way. Again, the role has to be representing of what you do, but it also has to be market friendly. If, you know, again, the market is looking for interaction designers and you're applying for interaction designer roles, then so be it. Your role is your role. It doesn't really matter. Like, the role doesn't constrain you what you do actually in the job. It just is roughly a ballpark of where your seniority lands, what type of skills you might need to have. But most of the roles I took were more than what was described. You know, sometimes you might take product design role, but you might need to do a lot of user research and so forth, depending on the different challenges and setups and variables. So don't overthink it. It's as simple as that. Cool. Last part. So this year, and this is very definite too, I think, the UX industry trends video, this one, by the way, if you haven't seen this, do look on my channel. Just search for UX industry trends 2023. It's going to sum up that, because it's not going to be any different, even if we're going to start rehiring and there's going to be more demand for generalists again or stuff like that. There's still going to be the obsession with this ship and measure approach. I think it's going to persist again because of that lean nature of things. You might actually also experience a bit of a design heaviness, research light, but it's still going to be in these three quadrants more so. However, the message from my end would be still to challenge the business, the product ownership, the executive leadership, whoever at whatever level are your peers or, you know, people above, to challenge and make this much more holistically. All of these, and again, this is borrowing from Pendo or one of the frameworks. I'm not gonna do adequate credit, but I mentioned it in a previous video and a lot of other videos. It's a superb framework to visualize exactly how you make your UX decisions. It has to, all of these have a lot of values in different challenges. If it's clear, like with AI, let's say specifically, and if you specialize with AI, which is going to be fraction of all the people viewing, a lot of it should be research heavy and quite design heavy or somewhere in between, but it should be research heavy because it does need a lot of discovery about user needs, their mental models, cognitive processing of things, cognitive mapping of how we make decisions and how to support them. So I would challenge to still think holistically. And if we know that appreciation is going to be for generalist role, fight that battle and expand the things towards research heavy and towards design heavy instead of just shipping and measuring and making those tech-driven solutions which nobody really needs. So that then links us back to my point of these different UX actions you could take to create the actual decision support tooling, which is going to be the human experiences plus AI processing plus AI suggestions plus something actionable they can actually do with it. And it's going to be live and it's going to be ongoing and it's going to be supportive of the actual needs and answering the actual needs so we can achieve some sort of good outcomes. So that's that. It's like you, even if you're going to be limited at this area, make sure to expand and challenge the business, because it's inevitable we're going to make so many mistakes and so many failures that a lot of that accountability is going to come down to you, because you're the designer of experiences and you facilitate that at the minimum. But then in that case, you are the fighter to basically fight the good fight and ensure that the users get the tools they actually need, not just necessarily what's cool or what's hot or what could cost business so much to maintain, because running the bloody models or renting that database space is way too expensive from AWS and other providers. But that's that. That's the summary of all the different things we're going to be facing of this year. Let me just see a few comments, and do let me know if you want any clarity before we wrap up about which UX designers you find remarkable or products with good UX. I don't. There are no good products with good UX, because UX is never done. And I know this is like, duh, like, this is such a stance to take. I understand. But UX is never done, and there is no perfect product. I could give you a few niche products which are perfect for me specifically as a user, but that doesn't matter. As a UX leader or someone who does UX, I don't look at the things like they're good UX or bad UX. They're like, they're better or they're worse, or they might be worse for me, but not necessarily for that customer type or user type. So make sure to dissociate a bit from that too, because otherwise you're just going to obsess over templated products. And it could be that ChatGPT you think is amazing experience, and then you're going to create another ChatGPT or another wrapper for the bloody chatbot, and it's going to suck, because it's good for maybe that, I don't know, that business owner who thinks the ChatGPT is the coolest thing and that experience is amazing. If you launch it to someone in healthcare who's a nurse who should just now chat about the medications and something else, well, it's going to be a terrible experience. So who depends? It depends contextually, depends on the user type, it depends on the actual ideas which stick or not. Oh, and thank you for a tip. You didn't really need to. This is totally fine. I cannot return it to you, but I would. I truly appreciate for all the support, and if this is useful and you can somewhat apply it to your year, that's all what I'm asking of you, or just have a think ultimately. And one more question before I wrap up, unless there is anything burning. Do leave them after this video finishes in the comments, because I can get back to it. I'm going to try to wrap up as well and create like a video reel to summarize for people otherwise. But when is it the right time to interview users versus not? That's a tough question, and a good question at that. It's always the right time to interview users. If you could interview users and you can engage with them always, you should do always. It's not possible, granted. The more you do, the more closer you are to good user experience. It's a luxury as well, because you're asking for someone else's time, and your firm spends on your time spending that cost on kind of talking to the users. But the more you can do, the better. So it's always a good time. It's always a good time in the generative research, the starting bits, or even like opportunity discovery. It's always good to talk to them once you have something to show. It's good to have participatory design sessions with them, so you can show early stuff and you can validate it immediately, so you know if it's desirable, if it adds value. Before you even usability test it, you can ask their ideas, because a lot of the challenges are also answered for you by the user. Like, that's the beauty of UX too, because especially if you work in technical fields or deep enterprise software or a niche in, let's say, bio research or like, let's say, pharma or something like that, or trading. The ideas you can't imagine how much good stuff the traders or pharmacists or researchers or scientists have in their heads. All you have to do is talk and extract, and they're gonna give you the perfect solution. Granted, you need to apply heuristics then, you need to solve on a product level, you need to, design it, then user test it and see if that sticks. But a lot of those ideas shouldn't come from you. It's gonna come from those conversations you have with the actual people. That's the beauty of it. That's why we do UX ultimately on a very high level. So always the right time. Like the more you talk, the better it is. And let's say if you take advice for startup founders, one of the main advice for successful startup founders, and this is not just by me, but I'm not gonna take credit, but if you take something like YC Combinator or something like that, if you watch their videos, they're gonna tell you, you should talk to your customers almost like every freaking day. You should just have conversations and learn from the conversations, from the data, from the surveys, from the different engagement ways and methods, and then shape your solution. So in that regard, it's always the right time. It's always the right day to talk to your users. Depends how big the thing is or how small the thing is, how risky it is. Then you have to plan the things out, or maybe then you have to realize how many users you need to have to make that study relevant or good. But hope that answers it. And I think that's about it. I hope this is useful for you. I hope you actually find a lot of value from this. That's ultimately the take. Do make sure to look out for other signals, especially those I highlighted, which would mean that we are getting there. We're in a good state. Do rewatch this too, because that certainly helps. But on that note, I'm gonna end it here. I hope you have a good evening or a good day wherever you are. Thank you so much for tuning in. And I'm out.